there a way out of this? Is there a way out of this? With all of the people that you have in your circles, has there been a diplomatic solution that even seems viable at this point?
I mean, I think I'll say two things, right? One is, we had one at one point, right? We had, President Obama negotiated a deal that worked for everyone, a deal that, created durable and reliable limits on the Iranian government's nuclear program, that delivered sanctions relief and economic growth for people in Iran, and that built a platform on which a future president, had they wanted to, could have pursued further diplomacy to deal with many of the other areas of contention between the U.S. and the Iranian governments. And that didn't happen. What happened instead is that Donald Trump in his first term tore up that agreement out of spite, effectively. The Biden administration had an opportunity to bring it back, failed to do that. And now here we are in a place where we've seen now, the first Trump administration and then the Biden administration and now the second Trump administration try to tell people that, if we tear up that deal, we can get a better one. No one's gotten a better one. Instead, we've gotten this war and this sort of all the disasters that have flowed from it. So backwards looking, there's so many things that could have gone differently. Forwards looking, I think we saw a few weeks ago a framework for what a deal might look like. Right? We saw, the U.S. and the Iranian government concluded a memorandum of understanding that included, touched on sort of just about the full range of issues of disagreement between the two governments. Some old ones, the Iranian nuclear program, some new ones, control over the Strait of Hormuz, a thing that no one even thought about before Trump started this war. And that deal was pointed to a reality that is sort of, I think, worse for nearly everyone than it was before the start of the war. But fundamentally, play stupid games, win stupid prizes, right? Like you start a war that's doomed to failure, and you're going to generate a situation where you have to accept a peace that's not as good as the one you had before. And I think that but that was a framework in which you could imagine both sides digging themselves out of the hole of continued conflict. And establishing sort of a détente on this new basis and going forward from there. And again, instead of that, we have now a return to war, sort of flying in the face of the law of congressional approval. And as we are talking now, like, who knows where it's going, right? I mean, we're on the edge of potentially a really, really concerning escalation.
And this is, I've been using the term for a few months now, but we have painted ourselves into a diplomatic corner with the military brush. There are no off-ramps here where the United States will be able to claim any type of strategic victory. And what I think this has done more than anything is taught the American people who are paying attention the difference between tactical victory and strategic loss. We can bomb. I mean, we're hitting thousands of targets. We're hitting the same target multiple times in some cases, but yet the ships are not going through the strait. And now with this new development in the Red Sea, and I'm going to talk later about that from a tactical standpoint, where you see Iran now using power outside of its own government, the proxies, coming into play. Interesting enough, we've heard very little from Israel here lately, as far as interjecting with Iran, because the proxies present a problem that, to be completely honest, I don't think the Trump administration really thought about. And when you look at the ammunition expenditure, it is obvious they thought this was going to be a 3-day, 4-day, maybe a week war, and went hard and heavy. My question for you, though, is the United States willing to take a strategic loss because of the economics of this conflict?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, I just want to say, first of all, I love the phrase, painted us into a diplomatic quarter with a military brush. I think that's a perfect description of this conflict, and I think also a description of so much of what's gone wrong in U.S. foreign policy in the last 25 years. I mean, to your question, I think, will the U.S. accept it? I mean, I think the thing about strategic defeats is that they happen, right? Whether you accept them or not. And I think that's sort of, where we're at. And it's a question, it's a diplomatic question of, will the U.S. government have the skill and frankly, the self-awareness to cut our losses in this situation where, I mean, as you point out, right, the military approach here has been singularly ineffective. Right, we broke off negotiations to pursue a military approach. That military approach has produced a worse outcome than we had before we started. And not only that, but even if we just sort of zoom into this last few weeks, where most of the exchanges of fire have been about contesting control over passages through the Strait of Hormuz, we haven't won that either. The Iranian military are still hitting shipping targets, including today, and at this point we're at basically zero traffic through the strait. Everyone is suffering as a result of that, and there's no clear military path for how to bring that shipping back. And so so I think the question is, if it's clear that doubling down on the military side isn't going to deliver what we need to have delivered, and I think that should be clear to anyone who's being honest with themselves at this point, then you have to figure out, okay, using diplomatic tools, how can we decide what we need to maintain here, and figure out what we need to give up in order to get that. And it's not a happy place. It's not a place that anyone likes to be. It's certainly not a place that Americans like to be. We like to think of ourselves as the most powerful country in the world that wins all the time. But in this case, it's where we are. And I think we have to sort of look that in the face.
How do you think this is affecting the United States' reputation with allies, the world at large, being able to have diplomatic discussions on anything? Is there a ripple effect from this that you think probably or may affect the United States' ability to negotiate or even interact with other countries?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a huge one, right? I mean, and in sort of all like avenues of diplomacy, right? With our friends, this is just part of a long-running series of attacks on the concept that the U.S. might have friends internationally, that Trump has orchestrated, right? To pick a few out of a hat, right? We're still threatening to invade Greenland. We're still, Trump wants to is tariffing Canada, trying to sanction Spain, I guess. Like it's sort of wild stuff. And this conflict has been no different. This conflict has been a situation where Trump has consistently cajoled, threatened, insulted European allies in the hopes of getting them to join his war, which they have, I think, quite wisely avoided doing. And he's also, as we've seen in a lot of reporting, left governments that even he has relatively close relationships with in the Middle East, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, the Kuwaitis, et cetera, have been really sort of left out on a branch here because they're not getting coordination from the White House, and it's often their people and their infrastructure that are suffering response. There's suffering strikes from Iranian missiles and drones. So in that sort of sphere, like there's all kinds of damage to relationships. And then in some ways, maybe even more concerningly, right, in a way that's sort of more difficult to account for, dealing, Barack Obama famously liked to say that you don't need to negotiate with your friends, right? Like negotiation is something you do with your enemies. In order to do that, it is actually important for the countries you're negotiating with, the governments you're negotiating with, to believe that you might actually follow through, on
Right.
the what you put forward in those negotiations. And now the Iranian government has engaged with the Trump administration in relatively good faith twice over just in the last year, and both times have resulted in widespread bombing in Iran and no deal, right?
Right.
And I think that advocates in this space have long warned, right? But getting back to the Iran deal, to the JCPOA and the JPOA before that realistically, and this is speaking with military experts, and speaking with nuclear energy and nuclear weapons experts,
Mm-hmm.
realistically, if the Iranian government decides that it wants to pursue a nuclear weapon, the only way to effectively restrain that pursuit is through diplomacy. That functionally, that's just simply is a functional fact of life. And Donald Trump, I think, has done more damage to that pursuit, the pursuit that he claims this whole thing. When he sort of moves around about what he says this war is about, but some days he says this war is about preventing the Iranian government from attaining a nuclear weapon. And if that's the goal, I think he's done more harm to that pursuit than any president of our lifetimes.
And to be completely honest, it may be beyond our lifetime. This is unprecedented, a war of self-selection.